All right, Michael Popok, we've got a lot to discuss on Legal AF. We've got Donald Trump caving in federal court after Donald Trump federalized the Metropolitan Police Department. He was then immediately sued by the mayor of Washington, D.C. and the D.C. Attorney General after Donald Trump tried to not only just take over the Metropolitan Police Department, but essentially kind of fire the police chief and then have the head of the DEA run the Metropolitan Police Department. That triggered an immediate lawsuit. Judge Reyes, the federal judge overseeing the case, looked like he was about to rule against the Trump regime and was very, very, very critical of the way the Trump regime was behaving. After Mayor Bowser stood up to Donald Trump caved. We'll talk about that. There was a trial taking place regarding Donald Trump federalizing the National Guard in California, and specifically in the Los Angeles area. The trial took place in the Northern District of California, which is actually in San Francisco, before a federal judge named Breyer. Multi-day trial under one of the central issues was the Posse Comitatus Act. Basically, can you use the military as a roving police force in states, and what's the emergency powers that are being invoked here? So you had a lot of Trump regime witnesses being called, people who once they were put under oath. You'll talk about it, Popok. Let's just say there's an important reason why we have trials, because the Trump regime was utterly exposed when these people testified. Then you had a lot of losses for the Trump regime in federal court. And I do want to touch upon, if you want to call it the win that they had, which is a loss for all of us, is basically dismantling the Consumer Protection Financial Bureau in the D.C. Court of Appeals. But other than that, win for the Trump regime, which is a loss for everybody, including Trump voters. I mean, the Consumer Protection Financial Bureau, was very important to stopping, a lot of the fraud committed on us on a day-to-day basis on consumers. We'll talk about that and more. It's Legal AF. Good to see you, Michael Popok.
Oh, it's always great to see you, Ben. And let me, in the canons of our Legal AF, this episode will go down, I think, as the week loser episode. That is a common theme. What amazing reporting Midas Touch and you, Ben, were doing about that thing that just happened up in Anchorage, Alaska, where Donald Trump was given the distinct honor of being given the loser speech at the press conference after a failed summit. Didn't even result in a ceasefire, didn't result in anything. Putin gave the 8-minute victory speech while Donald Trump gave a 3-minute loser speech, and then had to go run to NATO and go run to the European Union and to Zelensky in order to try to bail him out. And I have to just put this in perspective. In the history of presidential diplomacy, this was one of the, if not the worst and weakest thing that's ever happened to a president. You don't use your power as a president to meet in a bilateral meeting unless your diplomats, of which we have none anymore, have laid the groundwork for a successful meeting, or you don't meet. But you don't go there and roll out the red carpet and try to walk down it and then kiss effectively Putin's ass and his cheek, Putin grinning the whole time because he knows he can only win, he can't lose. And he did. Nothing came out of that at all. And now I made a joke on one of my hot takes. It wasn't pursuing peace. That shouldn't have been the banner over Donald Trump's weak foreign policy results. It should have been missing peace, because the missing piece was Zelensky. And without him being there, now they got him running in on, wait till Midas and Legal AF cover this, running in on Monday morning into the White House Oval Office. I hope that goes better than the last time he was in the Oval Office and they cut off his balls in front of the public. But that is an example of a weak, failing presidency at the foreign policy level. Then a weak domestic policy. Wait till we start touching on his poll numbers, which are now down below 38% approval ratings, lowest in modern history, including losing all of his MAGA under 35-year-old voters. And then the economic numbers. He can't fire. How many times can he fire the Bureau of Labor Statistics? How many times can he fire the numbers, new numbers coming out, showing pricing, tariff pricing now hitting the economy and the bottom line? So he has to do all these distractive things, and he's losing in the courts. Sure, there was a win, and you and I are going to explain why there was a win for him and a loss for the American people about the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau established by Barack Obama and now wrecked by two Trump appointees. Get it? You see the theme here? 2 Trump appointees on the D.C. Court of Appeals. The comedy team. It's a tragedy team of Reyes, Rayo, and Katsas is back. And every time they're together, you can guarantee a Trump win and a loss for America. But just the last thing I'll say about this, a number of amazing wins against the Trump administration and for democracy this week, answering the question that I'm often asked in Substack live chat and in chats on Hot Takes. Why does it matter, Popok, if we're going to lose at the Supreme Court? It's because 99% of the cases don't get to the Supreme Court, and Donald Trump is folding left and right, either losing and or folding, and hundreds of millions and billions of dollars are flowing back to their proper recipients because of the wins that are being obtained by the attorneys general, by the states, by the democracy forwards, by the ACLUs of the world, and other plaintiffs, other courageous plaintiffs. They're winning, and then quietly the money is flowing back to these entities, and that's what you and I need to cover on a show like this.
As an American citizen, it is sad and bizarre to watch the country operate like a Trump organization, which is fraud. It is weak. It is capricious. And, then other than the Midas Touch Network and a handful of other independent media, maybe an anchor here or there, like a Rachel Maddow, Lawrence O'Donnell, Nicole Wallace, but by and large, the way the trip was reported, it was still Donald Trump says, versus what did we all objectively observe in Alaska? Because I observed Putin laughing in Donald Trump's face, and in the United States, I observed Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, show up in a USSR shirt, mocking the United States and Europe and making a statement about an imperial Russia, essentially saying, we're going to take over all of Europe. I mean, that's what the statement was there. I saw our troops being ordered by Trump, not making this up, to go on their knees to roll out the red carpet for Vladimir Putin. There's a photo of our troops literally on the ground. And I'm looking at this, and this is as catastrophic as you get. And, you saw at first, even Fox, they were struggling to put the words in it other than to say, man, this did not look good, or like it seemed that like Trump and everybody looked defeated and we're not really sure what's going on. Then they do what they always do, which they bring on their Kellyanne Conways and their propaganda mouthpieces who are like, and that guy, former Congress member Chaffetz, and random guests who are willing to just say whatever. And they go, this was an incredible day. We are stronger than ever. This is absolutely amazing. This couldn't have been better. Putin was really sent a strong message. Nah, just stop the crap. Just stop it. Here's literally the photo, just so people can see it of what it looked like. This is a photo that will go down in infamy of the decline in American power right here. Again, Donald Trump does on any given day 100 things that are impeachable offenses, 25th Amendment stuff as well, criminal, if you add them all up together. We cover it here on the Midas Touch Network. It's why this network continues to grow. All right, let's get into, though, this Donald Trump federalizing of the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C., without calling the mayor of D.C. to even say that was the plan. It was just announced. And then Donald Trump bringing in the National Guard into Washington, D.C., saying that other troops could come into Washington, D.C. On Tuesday and Wednesday, you started to see the tanks roll into Washington, D.C. They start setting up illegal checkpoints in areas where people are just like going out to bars. You have all of these MAGA Republican Congress members out there saying the most ridiculous things like, I don't even have a home in Washington, D.C. I sleep in my office because it's so dangerous. I saw Congressmember Burchett say that. I saw MAGA Republican Senator Mark Wayne Mullen say, when I drive, I don't wear a seatbelt because I have to run if I see how dangerous it is. Let me be clear, everybody. I went to school in Washington, D.C. I visited Washington, D.C. recently. Crime is at an all-time low in Washington, D.C. It's a 30-year low. Like any city, there are pockets of areas that could be bad, but nowhere near as bad as any of these red cities, red states. DC is a very nice place. And in America, we don't want military on our streets. We can enhance and support law enforcement efforts, but we don't want the military roving our streets. So the mayor at first, because Donald Trump invoked a special, act that deals with Trump in DC, at first the mayor was like, the reality is that there's not much we can do given the relationship between the federal government and DC. Donald Trump claims a fake emergency, but then it was clear, Popok, and I'll pass it over to you, that Donald Trump was seeking more than that, right? He wanted full control over the Metropolitan Police Department to the point where he wanted to appoint a new police chief. He wanted to take the head of his DEA, who was someone who ran Virginia's, a public safety officer in Virginia under Youngkin, this DEA guy, who was also known for being a very corrupt guy in Virginia, move that person to basically run Washington, DC, to run the DC police force. So then Mayor Bowser of DC sued, and I'll let you take it from there, Popok.
Yeah. So, and I think we have a real attorney general in DC, and that person's name is Brian Schwalber, and he is the District of Columbia Attorney General. And he showed a lot of strength along with Mayor Bowser and Captain and the Chief of Police Smith, when all of a sudden on Thursday night, Pam Bondi issued her version of an executive order about the takeover of the police department, decapitating the leadership, functionally decapitating the police chief and putting a temporary commissioner in Terry Cole, the acting head of the DEA, in charge of being the commissioner of DC. I feel like it was like this was some Gotham episode from Batman. He's going to be the new commissioner everybody's got to respond to. DC responded almost immediately. They said, okay, first of all, they were blindsided by this Thursday night executive order because while Donald Trump had said, I'm going to do certain things, they didn't think he was going to violate Section 740 of the Home Rule Act, established in 1973 by Congress, which gave sovereignty and home rule status to the District of Columbia. They wanted statehood. They got home rule. And under home rule, there was one sliver of power reserved for the president, whoever that would be, by Congress at the time, which was if you need assistance of the police department for a short period of time on an emergency, like a riot or some parade that gone awry, then for 48 hours up to 30 days, the president can make a request/demand on the mayor to the police chief executes. That's the way it's supposed to be. Donald Trump skipped all that because, in his view, there's an emergency. I can do whatever I want. I have emergency powers. Well, you don't have emergency powers in that way. The Congress has a lot of power over the District of Columbia under the Article 1 of the Constitution. It's an Article 1 power, again, not an Article 2 power with the presidency. He's got limited powers. So instead of doing that, make a demand, an instruction to the mayor to the police chief, it became, we'll skip all that. We'll just create our own commissioner. Okay. So Schwalber puts together an emergency petition. He files it Friday morning. By Friday afternoon, we were doing hot takes. I had to keep doing hot takes because I said, I think this is going to go into court really quick. It went into court within hours. And it got assigned to Judge Reyes. I did a whole profile on Judge Reyes on the Legal AF YouTube. I love Judge Reyes for so many reasons. First of all, she's a person who came from another country. She naturalized American, went to Harvard Law School, federal law clerk, gets appointed by Obama, comes from Uruguay. I think she came from Uruguay. And she is also openly LGBTQ+, first Hispanic to be on the, which is hard to believe, to be on the DC federal bench. And she already took on the Trump administration once before. People will remember her from our coverage. She's the one that excoriated the Trump administration during the attempt to drum out of military transgender Americans who just were patriots doing what we want them to do, which is to serve our country and protect our country. And she took them to task. She drilled down on the Department of Justice lawyers so hard and so right. And I loved one of her examples in that case where she said, you're relying on rolling out and drumming out the transgender soldiers because Secretary Hegseth, 20 days into the job, thinks that they're untrustworthy, liars, and dishonest. Don't you think that's dripping with animus? Let me use an example. Where'd you go to law school? The guy said University of Virginia. Okay, I just made a new rule. Anybody who went to the University of Virginia Law School, I find to be dishonest, I find to be untrustworthy, and I find to be disloyal, and they shouldn't be representing the Department of Justice in my courtroom. So sit down. How do you feel about that? Trump filed a judicial complaint against her because she went through that Socratic method and they didn't like it. Now, it's still pending. Nobody cares. But it certainly didn't hold her back on this case. So she called everybody together. And right away, she made it pretty clear within the first 30 minutes that it was going to be a tough day for the Trump administration. She said, I don't understand. The Home Rule 740 says you can only be there for 30 days. Do you agree with me on that, Mr. Roth? Yes, I have no reason to disagree with you. That's how they always answer questions to federal judges now. Okay, so we're talking about a 30-day issue at best without a joint resolution of Congress. I don't understand your argument about emergencies being able to let Donald Trump, your president, or the president, replace the police chief with a commissioner. It doesn't say he can do that. That's not what he's allowed to do. But wouldn't that suggest that an emergency just totally, that exception somehow eats the rule? It just totally turns it on its head. Why would you have the rule then? No great answer. She made it clear, I am going to rule against the Trump administration. And I know a lot of I want to call them competitors, other legal pundits that I watch occasionally, are going to be shocked by this. I watched one guy who will remain nameless on CNN, who I have a new name for him. I know Trump calls the Federal Reserve Chairman too late. This guy's always wrong. I don't know. He's like, I think it's going to be a very tough day for D.C. I think Trump, no federal judge is going to be able to declare whether he's right or wrong on an emergency or not. I'm like, oh my God, that's totally wrong. And fortunately, the judge agreed with me. And the judge says, yeah, I'm going to rule against you. I'm going to give you one opportunity to go in the hallway. And I've been there, and so have you, Ben, in courts where the judge kind of brokers a settlement. Go figure this out in the hallway. But I'm ruling against you. So bargaining in the shadow of that, and I've been there, they went in the hallway. Now, who flies in from Department of Justice, Main Justice in Washington? Stan Woodward, one of your and my favorites, an oldie but a goodie from Mar-a-Lago. There he is, Stan Woodward, now the new number 3 in the Department of Justice, now that another MAGA got elevated to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals in Emile Bove. We now got Stan Woodward, Jan 6th lawyer, MAGA through and through, represented one of the co-defendants of Donald Trump in the Mar-a-Lago case, and also accused the special counsel of trying to extort him or shake him down at one point. He's now been given a promotion. He runs over, because Bondi and Blanche don't want to do it, he runs over into the hallway in the breakout rooms to try to negotiate a settlement. Now, what was announced by the mayor and by the attorney general that I respect in D.C. was that they capitulated. Effectively, they're going to enter into an agreed injunction to restore what 740 of the Home Rule Act says, which is Trump or his designee, in this case, it's going to be Terry Cole, the DEA head, to mayor to chief to the police, and that Bondi would rescind her order. But Ben, I got the rescinded order here. We'll post it on Legal AF Substack. I don't think this is going to make Judge Reyes happy. I'm just going to read from 2 sections of it. And I know, we've been following them a lot. They have to enter into an order and get the judge to sign it. It hasn't been filed yet. I assume that's what they're going to do next. They can't do this on a handshake and just, I withdrew my original order. Here's the new order by Pam Bondi. Of course, it's got to start with a lie and attacking Democrats and others for fake news. She can't write anything unless it has that in there. That's a given. She said that notwithstanding false, this is in her order, notwithstanding false media narratives and apparent efforts by some district employees to manipulate crime statistics, there is no evidence that there's been any manipulation of the fact that crime is down almost 30% in 2024, 2025 in the District of Columbia. Okay. But she'll just throw that in there. The danger posed by violent crime is plain for all to see. It's plain for big balls. The staffer, the teacher's pet, 19-year-old who got jumped by a bunch of 14-year-olds, sure. But like crime where I've been in D.C. recently with my pregnant wife walking the streets, I didn't feel crime. I didn't feel unsafe. But she then goes on to say that this is the change, I guess, that pursuant to her executive order the executive order of Trump, Terrence Cole, as the drug enforcement administrator, will be the attorney general's designee for the duration of the emergency. And here's what is now the necessary and appropriate services they are requesting, demanding of the police through the mayor and the police chiefs. And it looks like it's about immigration and homeless. 1, assist with the enforcement of federal immigration law as deemed necessary by the administrator. Okay, so now we're doing immigration chasing in the streets of D.C. 2, assistance with locating, apprehending, and detaining aliens unlawfully present. See, they're making this link of aliens are committing the crime. That's not who jumped big balls. It was a bunch of 14-year-olds who live in D.C. So I don't know how 1 and 2 help the crime spurge that's going on in D.C. 3, database inquiries about federal law enforcement. Okay, that's pretty vague. And the last one is enforcement of the D.C. code, so local code on the ground pertaining to the unlawful occupancy of public spaces. Now we're taking homeless people out of encampments with using federal forces and police forces. I'll leave it on this, Ben. I looked at the statistics that were generated by DC and divided it by the amount of days and the arrests. They were doing over 100 arrests a day without the takeover. And then it dropped to 30 a day, to 40 a day, or 103 days with the new Bondi troops. So again, total facade, total charade being perpetrated on the American people, seen through by Judge Reyes. And now we've got a folding, capitulating taco moment for Donald Trump.
This is all making us far less safe. This performative manifestation of Donald Trump's dictatorial fantasies doesn't make us safer. Donald Trump is defunding police. Donald Trump is creating the conditions for there to be more crime across the country. Donald Trump is pulling the FBI away from terrorism, sex trafficking, major crimes, gangs, in order to go after people in Home Depot parking lots, in order to, attack hardworking immigrants who are supporting their families. He's having FBI agents and federal lawyers go through the Epstein files, not to release them, but to delete Donald Trump's name from them, to redact his name from them, and then not release them and cover them up. He's removing them from to keep things that we need for our safety. And then Donald Trump goes and helps sex traffickers like Ghislaine Maxwell, moves her to minimum security facilities, which is creating massive issues within the prison systems as well, because you've now brought her to a minimum security facility near a college campus where the people walk back and forth from the college campus to the prison. There's a lot of Texas A&M and Camp Ryan in Texas, what I'm referring to. There's a lot of children who go to that prison to be with their moms in the females' prison, and now they're terrified about having a convicted sex trafficker there. All of what Trump's doing is making us less safe, more crime, and just for the theater, the reality TV of fascism, intimidation, and threats to make America look like a military state, and to have the impact of it, but with an outcome being everyone is being harmed. I want to talk more about that when we get back. I want to talk more about the trial on that point. that took place in San Francisco in the Northern District of California. Before we take a break, I want to remind everybody about Michael Popok's law firm. So if you or anybody you know has been injured in an auto accident, trucking accident, catastrophic injury, wrongful death case, call 877-POPOK-AF for a free case review today, or go to thepopokfirm.com. That's 877-POPOK-AF, or go to thepopokfirm.com for that free case review today. Also, subscribe to Michael Popok's YouTube channel, which is the Legal AF YouTube channel, and Michael Popok's Substack, the Legal AF Substack. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. We've got a lot more to discuss, and make sure you don't be shy. If you have a case or you have someone you know who has a case, look in the description. Give Popok a call. It's a free case review.
On that note, little odometer, we're averaging now about 2 cases a day representing Legal AF and Midas Touch people. Quite outstanding. Two cases every day that are coming in.
Everybody the worst you'll hear is that, we can't take the case. That's the worst you'll hear from Popok. All right, quick break. We'll be right back. See you soon.
The weather, it's heating up, and your nighttime bedroom temperature has a huge impact on your sleep quality. If you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. Miracle Made sheets are inspired by NASA and use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating, so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. Using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, no matter the weather, so you get better sleep every night. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands, and feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. Upgrade your sleep as the weather heats up. Go to trymiracle.com/legalaf to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo LegalAF at checkout, you'll get a free 3-piece towel set and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/legalaf and use the code LegalAF to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/legalaf to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. Right now, the headlines are chock full of data breaches and regulatory rollbacks, making us all vulnerable. But you can do something about it. Delete Me is here to make it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online. As someone with an active online presence, privacy is really important to me. I keep hearing about data breaches in the news. I just had one happen to me. In a recent Coinbase breach, a hacker got names, addresses, even parts of Social Security and bank account numbers. And guess what? Data brokers scoop that up and sell it. Thankfully, Delete Me helps remove that data from hundreds of those sites, keeping it out of the wrong hands. Delete Me does the hard work of wiping your personal info from data broker websites. You tell them what to delete, and their privacy experts get to work, sending you regular personalized reports. You always know it's been removed. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now, at a special discount for our listeners, get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/legalaf and use promo code LegalAF at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/legalaf and enter code LegalAF at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/legalaf and code LegalAF.
Welcome back to Legal AF. Thank you to our sponsors. Discount codes are in the description below. We've grown with 0 outside investors, so if you want to help the Midas Touch Network also grow, support those sponsors. And Jordy and Popok work out good discount codes for all of you to enjoy those sponsor products and services. All right, let's get back into it. So we talked about what happened in Washington, D.C. Let's go west to California, my state, where Donald Trump federalized the National Guard, sent the Marines into Los Angeles as well. Again, he would send them into like McCarthy Park, where there was like summer camps of like Latino kids playing soccer. He would send them into Home Depot parking lots. Still to this day, thing called Operation Trojan Horse. They'd be in the back of Penske trucks. People would be like working, and vendors would be selling hot dogs and selling fruit and things like that. You know, it's the South Park version of what went down is not really parody. I mean, it's a cartoon version of what really happens. I mean, maybe at the end when she goes in and she shoots 30 puppies, she shot and killed, as far as we know, one puppy, not 30 puppies at the end. But what happens is these ICE agents, you know, and these militarized police forces, you know, they show up, open up the Penske truck, run and start grabbing people like they're out hunting, and there are bounties on people's head. That's what ICE does. The National Guard and the Marines, they were just treated so horribly by the Trump regime. You know, like they didn't have beds at first, and they weren't getting paid at first, and then they had to like sleep on the floor. And then they ended up like there was no bathroom, so they were defecating inside their Humvees.
By the way, same exact thing as Jan 6th when he finally sent the National Guard. It was almost the exact same thing. No beds, no hygiene, no toilets for the National Guard.
Yeah, so that, you know, and that was very late, and when it came, that was very late, you know, and so. And then what the National Guard and the Marines did was they would stand in front of like the immigration court building in downtown LA. They would just stand there. I was like, what are you doing? Like, and people were like, we didn't sign up to be in the Marines or the National Guard to be deployed in the United States against Americans. So there was a trial on the Posse Comitatus Act. It was before Judge Breyer, who happens to be the brother of the old Supreme Court Justice Breyer. I've appeared before this Judge Breyer before when I used to practice law. He's a no-nonsense guy. Popok, take it away. This was a multi-day trial, lots of witnesses being called. They were under oath. They were being asked questions. Do you think it's an emergency? Do you believe that there was an emergency? Yes or no? Do you think it was an emergency? The judge, answer the question. Do you think it was an emergency? Okay, no, it wasn't an emergency. I mean, you would call him a Perry Mason moment, but it would be, it would not be. It would not have been. Perry Mason at least had to, you know, ask a few questions to really get there. Not on the first one.
and the two stories that we did, one before the break and one now, are linked together because the reason that Donald Trump announced the takeover of the police department in the DC was not because Big Balls got his ass kicked, although that was interesting. It was because that was day one of the trial that was starting in front of Judge Breyer on the Posse Comitatus Act, and he wanted to be that performative art strongman puppet theater thing about I can do whatever I want. Emergency powers. I'm going to take over DC. But that was the step on the news story of a trial that probably caught him a little bit unaware, because back in June, the judge because this is the same Judge Breyer, who ruled originally, although it was not upheld by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals 3-judge panel. He actually enjoined and stopped and blocked the Trump administration from the takeover, the federalization, or the commandeering, we call it, of the California National Guard, finding it violated the Constitution, it violated the 10th Amendment, and all sorts of other things. But he carved out the Posse Comitatus Act very smartly. He said, I don't need that for my injunction. I need more evidence about the Posse Comitatus Act and get down to it. So I'm going to rule on the injunction on that. Posse Comitatus Act stays with me. This goes up on appeal. So on appeal, you can only rule. I mean, generally, you can only rule on what's in front of you, not what hasn't been decided yet by the trial judge. The Ninth Circuit said, we don't think you're right about the injunction part, about the commandeering part, and went out of their way, did some twists and turns about that. Then that left the Posse Comitatus Act back with the judge. And the judge was like, I want to hear from both sides. Do I still have jurisdiction? They briefed it. He said, okay, I do. So we're going to have a trial in August. And all of a sudden, August rolled up on us. And there was a 3-day trial against the Trump administration. Now, the only thing that the Trumpers had that they were trying to argue was that the judge didn't have the power, the jurisdiction, if you will, to stop Trump or to limit Trump, because the Posse Comitatus Act, which came out of our Reconstruction period post-Civil War, talked about fines and crimes.
So it certainly wasn't going to be a criminal case after the immunity decision. So it's talked about fines. It didn't talk about declaratory judgments that judges could enter with their inherent authority, or an injunction into the future to stop the future violations of the Posse Comitatus Act. Then what happened in D.C. in real time ended up wafting into the courtroom in San Francisco as an example of, smartly raised by California Attorney General's office led by Rob Bonta, which was, we have future harm. Look what they're doing in D.C. You know, it's another example where if you're litigating against the Trump administration, you must carry with you a Wi-Fi printer to have in the courtroom to print out new evidence as it occurs. We saw this in the criminal case. We saw it in the defamation case. We saw you just have to print. Yep, here we go. This just came in from just moments ago, Judge. You know, on the different time zones in New York and California, and so that's their major argument. It's a procedural argument. You can't do you can't do the crime and you can't do the fines, so you can't really. And the judge says, no, I don't know. No, there was a whole legal argument day on the third day about what are the limits? How can I limit? How can any federal judge limit? And he didn't like the response from the Trump administration is you can't. So that did not go over well. The testimony was relatively straightforward. They had a military guy, like a lieutenant general, I think his name was either Grant, it's some great name, about what he was ordered to do and not ordered to do, because this is all about whether the military might of the United States was used on domestic soil for law enforcement purposes or not, to do arrests. And we had enough examples, photos and pictures of people being arrested by the Marines and detained by the Marines, which would show that he had violated the Posse Comitatus Act. Based on the testimony that was put up, and Adam Klasfeld, who just joined Legal AF as a regular video commentator and contributor, he and I did every morning or every afternoon, day 1, day 2, day 3, because he was in the courtroom virtually. There was a Zoom of the hearing. And you know Adam's competitive advantage as a legal commentator and contributor is that he's in the courtrooms. You know, he sat through the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, literally in the courtroom. And if he can't get in the courtroom, he zooms into the courtroom. So he had some very good observations about some breathtaking evidence that obviously resonated with the judge. Day 1 was the California case with their evidence. Day 2 was basically kind of legal argument and some cross-examination by Donald Trump's side that didn't go well. And day 3 was the kind of reserved for more legal argument about the Posse Comitatus Act. I will give you the bottom line here. I would be shocked, and I will be shocked if it happens, if Judge Breyer rules in favor of the Trump administration and doesn't find a Posse Comitatus Act. I think he's going to find a Posse Comitatus Act violation. He's going to find the proper role of federal courts to rein in and limit an out-of-control president in this arena, that he has the power to declare and to enjoin. And then what's going to happen is there's going to be another emergency application on this ruling back, I think, to the same 3-judge panel. I asked Rob Bonta, who had an interview with me last week that's up now on Legal AF, about, do you think you're getting the same panel? He goes, I think so. He's not sure, but he's pretty sure he's going to get the same panel, which was not a great panel for him. It was a very strong Trumper, a right wings, right of center, moderate sort of guy, and then we hate to say it because we hate to criticize our own, but a sort of weak, at least apparently weak Biden appointee who didn't say a darn thing during the oral argument and didn't really say anything in writing, and sided with the other two. It seemed like she got steamrolled a bit. Let's see if it changes on the Posse Comitatus. Ultimately, something that's going to go to the United States Supreme Court on a fundamental issue, whether it's on an emergency application or it's going to be on the regular docket. We're getting so close now to the opening of the new term for the Supreme Court. We'll be talking about a case or two there that opens the first week in October as they set their schedule now. But that's what just happened. And that's why Trump tried as a distractor to step on the story to go after, what he thought was low-hanging fruit in D.C., which again, it was another example of the weakness of his administration. And I'll just leave it on this, Ben. If he thinks this is working with the American people, about 9 different polls in the last 3 days says it ain't. From Gallup to Pew to Ipsos to Reuters, I mean, every poll has said that this is the historically worst performance by a president in history. Now, Donald Trump likes to say, well, I'm always underpolled. Yeah, not about your performance. And we're not talking about you up for election. We're just talking about a snapshot. How do the people think about you and your temperament? Terrible. Do they think you're trustworthy? No, by a lot. Do they think you're honest? No, by a lot. Do they think you're a proper role model? No, by a lot. And where has he lost the votes? Under 35-year-old MAGA guys that were wearing red caps before are now abandoning his party in large numbers. And that's why the approval rating is now at 38%. The only thing he seems to be winning on is immigration at the Mexican border. But other than that, everything else and the tariffs and the tariff pricing to get to 4% inflation hasn't even hit yet. Although I don't know if you saw this number, fruit and vegetables are up 38% at the supermarket under the Trump administration. I thought we voted for him to have lower egg prices. I didn't realize we were going to pay 40% more for fruits and vegetables because Donald Trump doesn't care about the average American voter. All he cares about are the oligarchs and the top half of 1% in tax cuts.
Michael Popok, too. I mean, this was the party of small government, don't tread on me. and then you have California Governor Gavin Newsom holding a press conference about how if Texas engages in unlawful gerrymandering, California will respond, not initiate, only respond to the unprecedented nature of a redistricting before the midterms, which Texas wants to do. California Governor Gavin Newsom holds a press conference at the Japanese Museum, which was the site, infamous site, where people were taken to internment camps in World War II, where Japanese Americans were put in internment camps. And what does Donald Trump do there? He sends the military to harass people outside of Gavin Newsom's speech. Like just in the United States of America, he sends these militarized ICE agents and Border Patrol who wear the outfits of military while the governor of the biggest state, with the fourth highest GDP in the country, is giving a speech. Here's how Fox reported it. Let's play it.
Border Patrol agents are making arrests, illegal immigrants that I don't know if they were at this press conference, if they were in the area, but this is a very, as John put it when we first saw this video, a very in-your-face way to let, Democrats know that you are going to do your job, that you're going to carry out these Trump policies. Can you just respond to this video that we're watching right now?
Yeah, every single one of our ICE and Border Patrol operations is built on information, on investigative work. It's a case and an operation that has been planned because of who they think could be in that area.
So you're in the United States of America. That's in the United States of America. And then you have MAGA Republican Congress member James Comer from Kentucky. I'm James Comer. James Comer, supposed to be Mr. Small Government himself, Mr. States' Rights. Okay. What does James Comer have to say? Let's play it.
Carjacking, we have people mugging people at all hours of the day, and it's out of control. So the president had to send in the National Guard.
Right.
And I think that you've seen just in the last 24 hours a huge decline in crime. And we're going to support this. We're going to support doing this in other cities if it works out in Washington, D.C. And again, it's unfortunate, but we spend a lot on our military. Our military has been in many countries around the world for the past 2 decades, walking the streets, trying to reduce crime in other countries. We need to focus on the big cities in America now, and that's what the president's doing.
Yeah.
What are you saying? He's saying that we need to focus on the big cities for the United States military to be in American cities. And by the way, they're targeting blue cities with black mayors where crime is down, where the highest crime is in the red states and the red cities, objectively. And it's the blue states and the blue cities that quite literally fund the existence of the red states. America doesn't exist without California. California gives $80 billion more to the federal government than it takes. Texas takes more than $20 billion than it gives. That is a trend that takes place. Blue states, fiscally responsible, sacrificing for the greater good of this country, only to get the middle finger from the red states, who then don't play by the rules, try to literally destroy the blue states, treat the blue states, as you heard James Comer basically said, and on that Fox segment, letting the Democrats know. You could just replace the word Democrats with Taliban, Democrats and Al-Qaeda. That's how Republicans use the words basically interchangeably. Los Angeles, Fallujah, right? I mean, that's how that's what they're doing right now. And that's why we're in moments where we need to fight back, and fight back we will. And it's why I was grateful that California Governor Gavin Newsom said, look, you think I want to be dealing with gerrymandering right now? You think that's what I want to? No, there's so much other stuff I want to be focused on in California, but we have to save our country. And California is going to stand up to Donald Trump. As the governor, I'm not just going to talk the talk. I'm going to walk the walk. Here's specifically what I'm going to do. If Texas goes about and unlawfully gerrymanders, we're going to get rid of these Republican districts. We're going to do it in a transparent way. We're going to put a ballot initiative to allow voters in California to vote on new gerrymandered maps before the midterms, and we'll cancel out what they're doing in Texas. And so then you hear the Republicans cry and whine, and they're all like, Gavin Newsom's doing unlawful gerrymandering. Why would Gavin Newsom do this? This is so unfair. Gavin Newsom's trying to take our rights. That's part of the fascist mindset for these MAGA people. They play that they're sociopaths. So they bully. You punch them back. And then what do? They play the victim. And they say, we are the ones being attacked. They're coming after us. Why are they coming after us? Wah. It's why you have to constantly go on the offense with them. It's what we do here on the Midas Touch Network. It's what we do here on Legal AF. And we have to empower people with knowledge and tell them what to do. All right. We'll be right back after our last quick break. I want to remind everybody about Michael Popok's law firm. If you or someone you know has been injured in any accident, catastrophic injuries in particular, call 877-POPOK-AF for a free case review today, or visit thepopokfirm.com, 877-POPOK-AF, or visit thepopokfirm.com. Consultation is free. Don't be shy. Give a call. And Michael Popok's team will answer that call. You'll get a real human being evaluate your case. Wrongful death cases of people that you know, catastrophic truck and car accidents, sexual assault, sexual harassment cases. Reach out to him. Also subscribe to the Legal AF YouTube channel and subscribe to the Legal AF Substack. All of those are growing quite well. All right, we'll be right back. Take our last quick break of the show. Home stretch, Michael Popok and Legal AF first. I hit my hand pretty hard. Talk to you. Ouch.
In this crazy upside down world that we're working to make sense of, I have no better judge of character than my lab border collie Lily. And having given her her forever home, we take pride in making sure that we feed her healthy, fresh dog food while making sure we don't break our back or the bank doing so. And my family is thrilled to have found Sundaes for Lily, having tried other freezer box brands, and we noticed the improved health of our dog almost right away. First, she loves the flavor, and we love what it's done to her coat, eyes, and breath. And with her weight management, so much easier to manage her weight with a scoop of Sundaes than any other product we tried. And this product is super easy for us to store and serve. It doesn't require refrigeration or the delivery of dozens of pounds of ice packs. Sundaes is fresh dog food made from a short list of human-grade ingredients. Sundaes contains 100% all-natural meat and superfoods and 0% synthetic nutrients or artificial ingredients. Dog parents report noticeable health improvements in their pups, including softer fur, fresher breath, better poops, and more energy after switching to Sundaes. Unlike other fresh dog food, Sundaes does not require refrigeration or preparation because of their air drying process. Just pour and serve. Cancel or pause your subscription anytime with their 14-day money-back guarantee. Every order ships right to your door, so you'll never worry about running out of dog food again. Did I mention how easy and convenient it is to store the bags? Insert big white smile here. Get 40% off your first order of Sundaes. Go to sundaesfordogs.com/legalaf or use code legalaf at checkout. You know, as much time as I spend prepping, reading, and recording for Legal AF, I didn't realize how much sitting all day was dragging me down physically and mentally. By the end of the day, I felt stiff, foggy, and worn out. That's why I started using this episode's sponsor, Uplift Desk. Total game changer. It's not just about standing. It's about moving more, improving posture, and keeping my energy up throughout the day. I'm sharper, more focused, and honestly happier at my desk. Uplift Desk builds premium ergonomic furniture designed to keep you moving, feeling good, and doing your best work. You can customize your setup with over 200,000 desk combinations to fit your style and workflow. My personal favorite, their wire management system. No more tangled cords, just clean, focused space. Your workday doesn't have to leave you feeling worn out. Go to upliftdesk.com/legalaf and use our code legalaf to get 4 free accessories, free same-day shipping, free returns, and an industry-leading 15-year warranty that covers your entire desk, plus an extra discount off your entire order. That's upliftdesk.com/legalaf for this exclusive offer, only available through our link.
Welcome back to Legal AF. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Discount codes for all those sponsors are in the description below. Lightning round, Michael Popok, talk about the losses, and there was quite a few that Donald Trump was hit with this week. We talked about, some of we think he's going to lose in the Northern District of California, Posse Comitatus case. He caved in DC, but there are other cases. And then he does, though, have that 2-to-1 panel of Trump judges in that DC Circuit Court of Appeals, which hands him wins there, which are, I don't know, maybe personal wins for him. But when you eliminate the Consumer Protection Financial Bureau, hate to break it to you, MAGA, you're consumers. You're probably not Jeff Bezos.
Stop my protection.
Stop. Yeah. Rip me off. Hidden fees. Give them to me. All those hidden fees.
Bounce check fees. I love them. Bring it.
Fees. Airlines. If you cancel the flight, charge me for them. Charge me.
MAGA. All right. A little thunder before the lightning round, because you won't do it, so I'm going to do it. Everybody go look up National Public Radio's interview with Ben Meiselas. An amazing interview, and just reaching a whole nother audience, but also demonstrates how mainstream media, linear media, has finally figured out that there is a thing called the Midas Touch Network, and that there's an audience behind it, a fervent audience behind it. And some of us caught it in real time, some of us caught it later, but it's amazing. Go look up NPR, Ben Meiselas interview. This Legal AF, because of our audience, just broke the top 20 in all YouTube podcasts, regardless of the type of podcast that it is. We just hit number 16. That's not me and Ben and Karen. That's you. So we want to thank. We were doing it before when we had 300 people, so you could tell that we're nuts that way. But the fact that we are doing something that resonates, and as I like to say now to sign off on my hot takes, we're now joined at the hip, and together we will overcome this Trump administration. I assure you. Let me turn to the lightning round on about the wins, and they're really important. AG General Bonta had a very good observation. I pointed this question and posed this question to him. I said, General Bonta, there are people in our audience that are beleaguered and sort of ground down about the losses at the Supreme Court. Why do these cases matter? The 50 cases that the attorneys general have filed, the 80 cases that one organization, Democracy Forward, which now has a playlist on Legal AF YouTube, has filed against the Trump administration, the hundreds of others that have been filed. We're up to over almost 500 cases filed against the Trump administration in the first 7 or 8 months. The dozens and dozens and dozens of injunctions and new injunctions issued. Why does that matter if there's a couple of cases that we don't like, of course, that are going to lose the Supreme Court? And he reminded our audience of how they are winning substantially, that most justice, and the 95 or 98% of justice is done at the district court trial court level. Cases don't even get to appeal. And even on the funnel, when the cases get to appeal, the 10 or 15% of those cases in Trump-style cases, in normal cases, less than that get to an appellate level. Then only 0.001% end up at the United States Supreme Court. Even if you add together the emergency applications and the regular docket of the Supreme Court, you're talking about 100 cases out of like tens of thousands between state and federal court that are filed every year. Now, I'm not saying they're not important. They are important to our democracy. But the reason we, as an audience, and as the newsmakers, the people that are in the trenches doing the actual filing and litigating and arguing, why it matters, why we run into the burning building to save democracy and not the other way, is because of the things I'm going to talk about right now. And I think a great blueprint for what just happened is the National Endowment for Democracy case. That was an order, a preliminary injunction issued by Dabney Friedrich, who's a Trump appointee in the District of Columbia. Now, and she also took a not so subtle criticism she included in her new order. This was about the National Endowment of Democracy, which sounds like an amazing organization and one Donald Trump would hate. It's about promoting democracy, the U.S. style democracy around the world. And it's not just because it says democracy in it. It's not just the Democrats. There's three major core institutes that Congress funds and that Donald Trump has been holding up the funding related to. There's the National Democratic Institute. Okay, that's the Democrats. But there's also the International Republican Institute, the Center for International Private Enterprise, and Solidarity Center. And what happened is Congress allocated $300 million and a first tranche of almost $100 million. And Trump got in the way and said, we're not going to allow that drawdown, trying to put them out of business. So that right on within 90 days of the payments not being made to them, this nonpartisan group, they filed their lawsuit in March. We're now in August. Look how far it's been. Here's the pot shot. Here's the shot across the bow that the judge took, a Trump appointee, about what this group does. It says that this group, this is on page 2 of the order, is to promote the long-term U.S. interest by fostering stability. Now compare this to Trump. Countering authoritarian influence and reducing the drivers of extremism and migration. Okay. If this organization wasn't U.S. based, it would be focused on the Trump administration, because the Trump administration is all about instability, authoritarian influence, and extremism. And I don't think she pulled that out of her hat and didn't put it in the first 2 pages of her order. I think it was for a reason. And what happened is she ordered by preliminary injunction that the $95 million and the funding start flowing back to this entity ASAP. ASAP. We know why Donald Trump hates it. You know, it's DEI. He hates it, but we see the ramifications of it. He hates diplomacy. He hates humanitarian aid. He's hollowed out the State Department. He's fired its employees. He's defunded the State Department. He's closed consulate offices all around the world. He's turned people who normally would go towards democracy and our version of capitalism away from us and towards the Russians, the North Koreans, and the Chinese. Okay? Because he's eliminated this. This institute is about promoting American ideals worldwide. We are the leader of the free world, or we used to be. But that's where Donald Trump says, how much money can I save? Billions of dollars I can put somewhere else. I can give it to my friends. I can create a sovereign wealth fund and start investing in Intel with your money. Start investing in rare earth mining companies with your money. Start investing in Chinese chips with your money. Let's do it. And that's a problem, because there's more to running a country than running a business, even though you did a great job at the start of this podcast about he's running it like a regular Trump business, meaning we'll be going bankrupt anytime soon. We're like Trump steaks. That's where we're at this point as a nation. That's why everyone was like, we need a businessman running America. Not everybody. And I was like, no, because the country, the United States, and its levers and its requirements and the policies that it needs to enforce for the American people is not running a business. You can't make everything reduced to a dollar amount. You want to sell chips that will undermine our national security in NVIDIA? Just give me 15% and you can do it. No, that there are just things that go beyond that. And that's where we now have an example of folding, because even though the front page news was injunction entered and people were like, oh, just appeal it. He didn't appeal it. And now the Department of Justice has just announced that they're releasing the $100 million to the National Endowment for Democracy. And that's not the only example. General Bonta, when he was with us, he said, and so did Democracy Forward, billions for education have now been released because of lawsuits. So there's certain ones that Donald Trump fights on and defies federal judges about. But there's a lot where he just folds and the money starts to flow. So we have that win. Then you've got judges like Judge Kaplan, who knows Donald Trump well, because he's the judge that presided over both E.G. and Carroll cases, and where she's got $100 million of judgments. By the way, on that, just as long as we're doing a speed round, I just had Robbie Kaplan on Legal AF with an interview that's going up now. E.G. Carroll just had a huge win. Her $83.5 million judgment was just affirmed by the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. There's one more appeal, which is coming later this week, the order. Once that happens, the only thing standing between E.G. and Carroll, justice and $100 million, which she said she's going to donate to causes that it's going to drive Donald Trump crazy, is the United States Supreme Court. So we're going to have to see what happens there. So that's another win for justice. But Judge Kaplan had a case in front of him about the poor living conditions, as you said, for the National Guard. But this is for immigrants picked up in this removal hunt of the Trump administration in Manhattan. And they're reporting, unsanitary conditions, unclean jail cells, no mattress whatsoever, sleep on a hard concrete floor. And Judge Kaplan said, no. 3 times a day cleaning, get a mat on the floor for these people, get proper hygiene and sanitation in there, and report back to me on a weekly basis as to what's happening. This is what's going on with the wins, and it's over. Get this number, Ben. The winning streak right now for those opposed and defiant to the Trump administration is over 90%, even in the 80 percentile for the appeals. Now, there's one thing we got to keep an eye on. And I hate to say it, but when there's a Trumper in the woodpile, we're going to lose. And if there's 2 Trumpers in the woodpile, if there's 2 Trumpers on a 3-judge panel, we're going to lose. And Trump's going to win, no matter how devastating it is to the American people. And we knew on this random panel of Katsas and Reyes and Pollard, because they don't just get pulled in for one case, they get pulled in for several cases. And 2 cases got assigned to that panel, with Katsas and Reyes, the Trumpers, and Pollard not. One of them was the Jeb Boasberg case, in which Jeb Boasberg found there was probable cause to find the Trump administration in criminal contempt for being lied to about the planes going to El Salvador with 200 people on board without due process, and his order to ground the planes, which was violated. And the judge also said, I'm going to start making referrals over to bar associations for bar licenses maybe being pulled because I was lied to. Well, now the Katsas Reyes team have gotten together and on Boasberg have said, no, you were completely out of line. You can't continue to hold the Trump administration accountable, even though we know from whistleblowers that you were lied to effectively. We know that there is defiance going on in your courtroom, violating all rules of order and inherent authority of judges. But you were wrong, Jeb Boasberg. That's how far the Trump judges now go. That they're now wrapping the knuckles of chief judges of federal circuits or districts in telling them you were wrong because you should have allowed yourself to be lied to. And now they've just come out with their new ruling again with Pollard in the dissent, Reyes and Katsas, that team again, allowing the destruction of the Consumer Protection Board. Finance Protection Board, created by Barack Obama. One of the first leaders of it was Elizabeth Warren, to protect Americans from predatory lending practices, credit card practices, airline practices, anything that was consumer facing. Like we had regulators already for the industry, the Securities and Exchange Commission, banking regulators, the Office of Currency. We had all OFAC, all sorts of regulators that were against or regulating the industry, but nobody was protecting the consumer. Really nobody. I mean, states had some consumer boards, Better Business Bureau, but nothing at the federal level. And after examples of consumers, and that's you, MAGA, along with us, getting screwed by predatory lending practices, usurious interest rates, payday loans, like you said, airlines screwing you on the tarmac I just had that happen to me with things with no Bill of Rights. But this is not to protect big business. This is to protect the consumer. But this is how, I'm just going to do it this way. This is the first line of of Katz's order destroying the Consumer Finance Protection Board. This is all you need to know. This is line 1 of his order. To promote the president's deregulation agenda, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau undertook a number of steps to downsize. Okay, that's how Katz starts off his order, as if one day the consumer board got up and said, "Hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to downsize to stop protecting Americans. We'd like to the money you want to send us through Congress. No, we don't want it. We reject it. The people that are employed here, no, we don't need them either." That's how they, like, all passive voice, instead of Donald Trump just screwed his own electorate and others along with it by getting rid of consumer protection that we should all have as a matter of right and dignity. And he got his 2 Trumpers. Thank God there's not more Trumpers on the DC Court of Appeals when it comes to that, to allow for this downsizing. So it's going to be basically downsized out of existence. And the way they did it was always so underhanded. It's always like, well, we'd love to get to this issue, but you really don't have standing because you're the employees and you have your own very limited rights as employees now, federal employees, to argue about your dismissal. And you should go do that in some administrative civil service capacity, even though civil service protection has been eliminated under the Trump administration. But you should go do that, even though there's no real relief there. And it's not really a final order under the Administrative Procedures Act, so we really don't have any jurisdiction. And they spent 50 pages telling us why. Pillard wrote a dissent that said, "Are you effing kidding me?" This is my artist rendering, as she often does. Now, this is going to get to the Supreme Court. The question is, really for you, Ben. I've seen Roberts, it seemed like a distant Roberts, who saved Obamacare and then got pilloried and attacked by the pre-MAGA Tea Party and Republicans at the time. Do you think it will save the Consumer Financial Protection Board when it gets to the Supreme Court?
No, definitely not. I mean,
well, good night, everybody.
No, I mean, he's an awful human being. I mean, no. I think the one thing he did was, help was the Obamacare thing, but that was about it. Right now, the Supreme Court is, and they're going to do what I think they've done before in all of these things, Popok, which is just try to, even to your point, any procedural way the Supreme Court can get out of making a ruling that exposes that they gave Trump absolute immunity to commit all of these kind of criminal acts, they are going to do. So they're going to let him do most of the stuff. There's about a 5% stuff that they won't let him do, like we saw with Abrego Garcia, sending someone to a concentration camp in El Salvador when there was an order saying you can't do that. The Supreme Court will not allow the Trump regime to do that. If the birthright citizenship question on the merits, is birthright citizenship constitutional while Trump tries to argue it's not, that gets to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court will say birthright citizenship is in the yes, it is in the Constitution. It's protected. Trump, you can't do that. But they will try to do any procedural victory around the injunctive parts and all these other things to hand Trump, to try to get through these next 4 years, which is a very myopic way of viewing it, because Trump views this as a dictatorial takeover for more than 4 years. And now it's incumbent upon we, the people, who are going to be the ones that need to put pressure on this regime to leave. We're going to have to make sure we come out in droves for the midterms, but then be the pressure to get this regime out of there in massive numbers like we've never seen in the United States in 2028 when Trump and Vance and these fascists refuse to leave. That's coming. Like that will be there. One final point I want to make, though, and it's about E. Jean Carroll. You mentioned her briefly. When I interviewed her, she also said that she would be donating the money to, various causes. And this may make our viewers angry or upset, but I think she should keep the money because she was a victim of something so horrific and horrendous. And I appreciate the kind of selflessness there that she says she wants to donate it. But, she went through so much in her life, and she was so harmed and sexually assaulted and defamed over and over again. Her injury is a real injury, and she could do whatever she wants with it, but I just feel that she deserves it. She deserves it for what she's been through, and it always seems like when a Democrat or when or a non-Republican gets whoever, just someone who's not Trump and Republican MAGA, when they prevail or when they're injured and there's a award to restore them, it's always like, well, where are you going to donate it? What are you going to do? Or how are you going to do it or whatever? But on the other hand, when it's a Republican who's doing something bad, it's like, oh, of course they're going to take it. Of course. What do you think they're going to do? I don't know. And to me, it just creates an asymmetry. I don't think she should feel bad, that she has to give this money. You know what I mean? That she has, and I'm not sure that's how she feels.
I had her on after you. I had her on a couple of weeks ago, and I mentioned your back and forth with her. I'll tell you where it's hard to speak for her because she's so courageous and so honorable. I think it stems from why she brought the suit and how she doesn't want to live her remaining life. She's in her 80s. She doesn't want to live her life as a victim. And she says she's accomplished everything she's ever wanted to accomplish in life. She brought Donald Trump to justice. There's nobody you and I will be talking about that has $100 million worth of judgments against Donald Trump that's going to likely collect, like E. Jean Carroll. But she never wants somebody else to write her narrative or write her book for her. And so this is what she wants to do with the money. And Robbie Kaplan just told me in an interview that's up right now on Legal AF that at least as it relates to the first judgment, her firm's not even taking any money. It's not even, it's completely pro bono. Now I think she's going to make a little on the larger judgment. And then there's a huge net amount that'll be to E. Jean Carroll. Look, I'm with you. She definitely deserves it as a victim of sexual abuse and horrendous defamation. But this is who you just have to spend a few minutes with her to see that this is the way she wants to lead her authentic life and not be a victim.
No, there's no doubt about it. And she's such a courageous and honorable person. And it's such a incredible thing for her to do that. And it does set an incredible example. But I just think about what she went through and what she's been through. Horrible stuff. But fighting and taking and showing that anybody can fight back against this regime. If she can do it, as she says, she goes, I'm just one lady. If I can do it, think about what you can. I want to thank everybody for watching this episode of Legal AF. Michael Popok, always a great pleasure to do this with you and to be here with our audience on Legal AF. A reminder, if you or someone has a case, if you've been injured in a catastrophic car accident or trucking accident or sexual assault victim, or if you know someone who's been the victim of in a wrongful death case, see if you have a case. Don't be shy. Reach out to Michael Popok. Check out the Michael Popok's law firm. Popok, where do they reach out to? What's the?
That's easy.
There it is, right there.
1-877-POPOK AF and the popokfirm.com. I just was talking to the people that are involved with me in this, like the back office and the administrators and all. And, the three big areas where our Legal AF and Midas Touch Network are coming to us, I'm saying 2-3 cases a day, are auto accident, medical malpractice, and what we call civil rights and other type of sexual assault, sexual discrimination cases. I mean, we're getting a lot of other cases too. We're representing, as you know, we have the honor of representing a family of a flight attendant who was downed
and killed in the collision between a Black Hawk helicopter and the American Airlines jet 8 days into the Trump administration over the Potomac. So we have that as well. But those are the three core areas that seem to be, and from all over the country, I have a map that tells me where the legal AFers and Midas Mighty, just geographically where they're coming from. It literally is in all 50 states.
Pull that up one more time, Salty, just so everybody can get the phone number one more time. 877-POPOK-AF, 1-877-POPOK-AF, or thepopokfirm.com. Thepopokfirm.com or 1-877-POPOK-AF. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thank you to our sponsors. We'll see you next time on Legal AF. Shout out Legal AF first. Shout out Midas Mighty.